Roie Galitz, welcome to the Traipse and Global on Wheels podcast hour. Roie Galitz is an award-winning NYC-based, I guess now, right, currently
Yeah,
in
it
Tel
recently
Aviv
changed due to COVID. Yeah,
due to COVID, um,
yeah.
wildlife photographer and entrepreneur. For over a decade, he has been exploring and documenting our planet's wildlife and nature from the Arctic to the Antarctic. His intimate and innovative work was presented in local and international exhibitions, featured in exclusive magazines, and honored with over 70 international awards, including the prestigious Picture of the Year for reportage of science and natural history. With equal passion and commitment, Roy is acting as a Greenpeace ambassador and engaging in conservation work around the globe. His video and still photography is a strong testimony to the struggle of the majestic animals he meets throughout his expedition under the threats of climate change. To help protect them, he shares their stories in fascinating talks. He is recognized for his talks at the United Nations headquarters, the NYC Climate Week, and TEDx talks in Helsinki, Glasgow, and Wexford, alongside global conventions everywhere. So I will stop there. That is already impressive enough. I know you do a lot of other entrepreneurial work as well in Israel. And so you have a wealth of experience. What is the difference between a cheetah and a jaguar now that you've taken photos of a lot of both?
Well, cheetahs and jaguars are quite different. Cheetahs is a whole different family. I mean, they're not a Panthera genus. So I think leopards are more are closer in that sense to jaguars. And jaguars are the third largest cat in the world after tigers and lions. Leopards are found in Africa and also in Asia, and jaguars are only found in America. Jaguars have the strongest bite in all of the cat kingdom, and they can actually pierce through a crocodile's skin, which is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Jaguars are better swimmers, and leopards are better tree climbers, and there is also a lot of other differences. Cheetahs, on the other hand, they're built for speed. I mean, they're really weak, they're really agile and flexible cat. The cheetahs are only active during the day and never during the, no, I mean, I won't say never, but mostly never during the night, and other differences as well. I mean,
Yeah, there are
yeah.
just so many. So I want to, next we're going to move on to topics concerning disability. As you may know, this platform is one of the main focus is disability advocacy. And I started the series, this intersectional series on climate change and disability to include people with disabilities in these conversations too, because as you know, minority groups all over the world, including people with disabilities, are affected by climate change. I know your focus is mainly on animals, so I think it'd be interesting to think about as well and delve a little deeper from your angle to talk about these issues from your angle. So I don't know if you get this asked this question often, but I haven't seen it in your interviews, which is do you see very many animals with disabilities in the wild?
This
If
is the
yes,
first time I've been asked this question, to be honest.
okay.
I wish to answer that in two parts. The first part is I mean, first of all, I think the word disability is kind of generalizing, and there is a lot of disabilities that are not even disabilities in that sense, only perceived as disabilities. But in nature, you have a lot of variety, let's call it, of behaviors and physical characteristics of the animals, and so on and so on. I did encounter, and I mean, and animals are very resourceful. Okay, when you need to survive day by day, I mean, we don't know what survival is. Okay, we've never, most of us, never had to truly survive and not knowing if we're gonna wake up tomorrow or not. Okay, feeling, I mean, starving. I mean, most people don't starve to death. I mean, we're hungry, yeah. There is a lot of people who eat fewer calories than the minimum, yeah. But there is a huge difference in the animal kingdom where every animal is on that survival spectrum. Um, so I have seen animals with disabilities, and they are resourceful. And as I've mentioned, when I was in Brazil, I saw a jaguar. You mentioned the jaguars before, and I saw a jaguar who is cross-eyed. Okay, so he's cross-eyed, and that's a disability in that sense. And since he doesn't have any depth perception, he can't hunt for bigger animals like capybara or crocodiles or tapirs or other animals. But instead, he adapted and went for fishing. So he only catches fish where depth perception isn't that necessary. Another kind of animal with disability that I saw is saiga antelope. Saiga antelopes, if you know them, they are kind of an antelope living on the southern Russia border with Kazakhstan, and they have this big nose, and they look really adorable, but they're critically endangered. And I went there to do a project with the University of Moscow, and there I saw an albino saiga. So albino, I don't know if it's considered disability in that sense, but in the animal kingdom, it is. In the form of they're more visible and they don't have the camouflage characteristics that the other members of the herd have. So they really stand out. So wolves usually catch the albinos first. So in that sense, albinos never, ever make it to adulthood. So we do see animals with disabilities. Some are born with disabilities and some are injured during their everyday survival life.
Mm-hmm. How do you think it's affected the relationships? Like, how do they interact within the same group? Does it make them pariahs almost? Do they isolate themselves?
So in that sense, again, it depends on the animal. So with bears and with orcas, they will help each other. With elephants, I've seen amazing herd of elephant just helping this young elephant baby who was struggling to walk. I don't know what was his problem, but he was struggling to walk, so they helped him walk. So you get these kinds of behaviors as well as isolating. In the sense of the saiga antelope, the albino one that I told you about, since the saigas are very skittish, they are very afraid of wolves because wolves eat them. And the albino saiga looks a little bit like a wolf because it's not brown like the other saiga antelope. So every time this albino approached the herd, all the herd ran away just because they were so concerned that it might be a wolf. So this little albino was almost always left alone. That's also one of the reasons why the wolves eat them so fast. And with the jaguar, with the cross-eyed jaguar that I mentioned before, he was living with his brother. So his brother would help him catch fish, and they would share those fish. So I mean, you do have that in their surrounding. So they do help each other. And I want to add something else, that people with disabilities, I mean, a lot of the disabilities, and I'm not generalizing, of course, but I've had clients who participated in the workshops that I guided who were with disabilities, either on a wheelchair or crutches or other kinds of disabilities. And those people, I mean, they taught me that many of the disabilities that I thought that were serious disabilities are only in your mind. And they've done things that they went, roping down a cliff. I mean, amazingly, the way they did it. So again, I totally respect the fact that I personally, I don't like the word disability, just to mention. And I think that people are achieving amazing things in that sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those examples. As we said in your bio, you've done a lot of climate change advocacy work. How do you think climate change affects animals with disabilities in the wilds?
Well, climate change increases the stress of survival on many animals. And animals with disabilities are some that might survive with a less stressful environment will have a harder time surviving in a more stressful environment. So if you're competing for food and resources, or if you're trying to get away from a desperate predator, or migrating across bigger distances, so these animals will have a harder time surviving. And the first animals that are usually pass away, die, either because they can't hunt or because they're being hunted easier because they're the slowest one in the herd. These are the first to go away. And if the herd is going from 2 million animals to 1.5 million animals, the 500 who died are usually the weaker ones. And weaker, again, it can be disability, or it can be genetic, or it can be, I don't know, other characteristics that make them less likely evolutionary wise. I mean, it doesn't have to be disability. Maybe they don't have the advantage of the other ones in that sense. But that's the way evolution goes. I mean, evolution is a very cruel process that only the fittest survive, or the luckiest survive. And those who lack the potential are usually the ones that get out of the system sooner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know you also take people on expeditions, right?
Yeah.
Small group expeditions. So how has COVID impacted these expeditions? I'm assuming it's ended for momentarily.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we've had 20 groups canceled between March and October. So we've had a lot of cancellations. The tourism industry, I think, is one of the industries that suffered the most of COVID-19. And we are all waiting for a vaccine or some other kind of solution to let us continue our work and take people on those expeditions. And also, I'm doing projects and photographing and documenting wildlife for the BBC and other magazines as well. So these were also canceled or postponed to 2021. So, I mean, in that sense, COVID-19 has devastated the industry.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your expedition. So I'm actually really interested in them if you resume doing them in 2021.
Yeah.
Are they, so maybe, I use a manual wheelchair myself and I love to travel as well. And one of my goals is to go to Antarctica, which I know you've been. So are your expeditions wheelchair accessible? Yeah.
Many of them are. Tanzania and Svalbard and Antarctica and many others are wheelchair accessible. I've had even people in Lapland and in Svalbard on snowmobiles who were disabled in the sense that they couldn't operate their lower leg, but they can still ride a snowmobile in that sense. So again, disability is very generalizing this huge spectrum, but a lot of the expeditions are accessible to different kinds of disabilities, of course.
Yeah, and
I
so my
always
next
try to do that. And even in Tanzania, we have a special lift going into the car. And in Antarctica and Svalbard, we have a special crane to lower people on the ground from the boat. So there is a lot of solutions out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. So in terms of accommodating travelers, adventurers with disabilities, you mentioned just now that you had someone with limited lower limb mobility
Yeah.
participate. Have you had people with other sorts of disabilities join?
Yeah, I've had I had a blind person came to one of the expeditions to Svalbard, and I've had people with really bad backs. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's a spectrum. So, but he was very limited in what he could do. I mean, I've had all kinds of people with disabilities in that sense. I mean, even old people. I mean, 82 years old who are limited. I wouldn't call them disabled. I don't know. I don't think. But again, they were limited in their mobility, and of course, we helped them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm very happy to see that it seems like you are aware of
Oh.
the need in including people of various different mobility functions
And of course,
and
I remind you that my
access.
wife is a doctor, and it's very close to heart knowing her patients and what they're going through. So
Yeah. So I just want to close on one more aspect, which is how do you think, with climate change going on and different animals going extinct every few years, or perhaps even more frequently in recent years, um, what 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 role does tourism play in speeding up or slowing down that process?
tourism and sustainable tourism, I'll be more precise in that, actually helps save the environment. And even we're seeing it right now because I have a lot of contacts in Africa, and a lot of the rhinos that were hunted for their horn for the Chinese traditional medicine were later were transformed into tourism resources. So a lot of tourists come to watch the rhinos, and a rhino is worth more alive than dead. So for a dead rhino, you can get $55,000 for the horn. For a live rhino during tourism, it's worth around $80,000 to $120,000 alive. So it's in the best interest of the people to keep the rhino alive and not kill it. The same with the mountain gorillas. So the mountain gorillas in the Bwindi, in the impenetrable forest in Uganda, they were hunted and they were critically endangered. There were less than 1,000 mountain gorillas left in the world. And thanks to sustainable tourism and really expensive permits, I mean, the permits is $600 to $750 per person per day. And you have to you can only hire someone local from the community. So their livelihood is based on tourism of people who want to come over and see the mountain gorillas. So each mountain gorilla was worth $10,000 dead and now $80,000 alive. So that's a huge difference. So instead of killing the gorillas, they're now looking after them and making sure that nobody harms their gorillas, because if they do, the community is losing money. The same with the tortuguero in Costa Rica that were hunting, catching and selling sea turtles for soup and food. And now they have a lot of tourism based on those sea turtles. So again, worth alive more than dead. So in that, and I have countless more examples. So in that sense, tourism is raising the value of animals alive rather than dead. So the community has interest in preserving nature and the habitats and the animals themselves for their own sake. I mean, and you know, they say that money makes the world go round. The same in this case. If you're starving and a dead rhino can save your life, people will kill the rhino, and that's how it goes. So sustainable tourism is good for the environment, and there is destructive tourism as well, like the hunters and people who go for trophy hunting and so on. And there is destructive tourism in the sense of, you know, people who are ruining beaches and resorts, ruining sea coral reefs just to build another resort. So these can be also destructive. So it can be sustainable and it can be destructive. It all depends on how you do it in that sense.
Yeah, no, that's a very, I haven't heard anybody else put it quite that way, where, you know, sustainable tourism can help save animals, and perhaps help people be willing to maintain the environment better as well.
So now with the tourism down, we see more cases of rhinos being hunted for their horn, because their horns are still being sold for that price, and tourists don't come, so they don't make money off tourism and people are starving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, thank you so much, Roy. That was fascinating, and I know our viewers and listeners will be learning lots. And I don't know what time it is in Tel Aviv, but thank you for carving out time to do this.
My pleasure, Ming. My pleasure. Thank you very much for doing this.
Of course. Have a wonderful day, Roy.
Thank you. You too.
Did you like this video? If so, share with your friends and be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want even more resources, be sure to sign up for our email updates on our website, trapesandglobal.com. Keep learning new perspectives, keep being inclusive, because it will make the world a better place for you and for everyone else. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on another episode of the Trapes and Global on Wheels podcast hour.